did want to say something, and because I don't want to insult anybody that they aren't aware of this, but a lot of people aren't. And that is my opinion is that poetry is much nearer to music than it is to prose. And that is, I think, in the creative part of the process, and also in the reception of it. And poetry, a lot of poetry is not, you cannot or should not be able to intellectualize it. It wasn't meant to be, I don't think. I think it was meant to be a song. And you have to enjoy the music as much as whatever you think the message is, if there is a message. And sometimes they're not. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because some people get frustrated that they're looking for something that's not in poetry, typically. And that is to be taught something or be told to do something or to make judgments. It's looking for the wrong things and then being frustrated. Okay, so I'm going to start out because with a poem that is something to do with the heavens at night. And I'm going to follow with a different perspective. The title of this poem is In Addition to Faith, Hope, and Charity. I'm sure there's a God in favor of dreams. Consider their pervasiveness, the thump, thump, and slide of waves on a stretched hide of beach, the rising beat and slap of their crests against shore baffles, the rapping of otters, cracking mollusks and stones, woodpeckers beak banging, the beaver's whack of his tail paddle, the ape playing the bam of his own chest, the million tickering rolls of rain off the flat leaves and razor rims of the forest. And we know the noise of our own inventions, snare and kettle, bongo, conga, big bass, toy tin, timbales, tambourine, tom-tom. But the heart must be the most pervasive drum of all. Imagine hearing all together every tinny snare of every heartbeat in every jumping mouse and harvest mouse, sagebrush, vole, and least shrew living across the prairie. And add to that cacophony the individual staccato tickings inside all gnatcatchers, kingbirds, kestrels, rock doves, pine warblers, crisscrossing each other in the sky. The sound of their beatings overlapping with the singular hammerings of the hearts of cougar, coyote, weasel, badger, pronghorn, the ponderous bass of the black bear, and on deserts too, all the knackings, the flutterings inside wart snakes, whiptails, racers, and sidewinders, earless lizards, cactus owls, plus the clamors under sea, slow booming in the breasts of beluga and bowhead, uniform wrappings in a passing school of cod or bib, the thitterings of bat rays and needlefish. Imagine the earth carrying this continuous din, this multifarious festival of pulsing thuds, stutters, and drummings, wheeling on and on across the universe. This must be proof of a power existing somewhere, definitely in favor of such a racket. The next poem I'm going to read is one that was first initiated to the public, introduced to the public through the Alaska Quarterly Review. So it's first published there, and I thank Ron for that honor. And it went on to be chosen as one of the best poems of American poetry in 2008. And that was, I don't know if is that anthology still around, the best American poetry for each year. That year, the editor was David Wagner. So the poem not only appeared in Alaska Quarterly Review first, but was also picked to be part of that book, that anthology. And this poem is titled A Blind Astronomer in the Age of Stars. You know, people ask, well, how do you get an idea for a poem or something? And I heard this phrase, the age of stars. And, we don't know that in the future, thousands of years, there may not be any stars anymore. Maybe they have, as our own sun, they will be gone at some point. And so it was a phrase that was used in the astronomy course I was taking. So I put these two together, a blind astronomer in the age of stars. He considers himself lucky to have been born during the age of stars. All those beings in their shimmering shades, their silent, untouchable presence, he imagines how they shine as if they were the work of light, giving sight, like eyes to a blind universe. Making his way through fields at night, he can feel the light from those million sources touching him like the particles composing the finest airy fog, touching him like the knowledge of lives in a silent forest. He feels each star in the way he hears each syllable of his lover's whisper. And he claims to see the constellations from the inside out, having been inscribed from birth, he says, with their configurations. Indeed, his braille depictions of Canis Major, Dorado, Lyra, Orion are to scale and perfect. All through summer nights, he lies on open hillsides to observe the heavens. He describes the stars as transforming his body with their patterns like tattoos of light. The wings of Cygnus, the horns of Taurus. What kind of fortune would it be, he wonders, to feel the light of the Southern Cross along his brow? He believes that the constant jeets of the wayside crickets and the notes of the reed toads sounding like whistles underwater, and the soft brush of grasses in the wind, all together match in cadence the multiple spacings and motions of the stars. He imagines that the sudden piercing cry of a rabbit or a prairie mouse at night corresponds to the streak of a falling meteor, a helpless descending diagonal of light. He hears their passing in this way. The earth, he is certain, is related to the starry sky by blood. By the solid black existing behind his eyes, he understands the dimension beyond the edge of the farthest horizon, that place whose light has not had time to reach and touch him. He knows that place, its state and its lack. One he calls patience, the other pity. You know, it's really strange. I have all these poems, and some of them I haven't read in quite a while. And I read this one recently, and I thought, who in the world wrote that? You know, you come disconnected, and I think, what? Anyway, it was a kind of puzzle I like to put together, a blind astronomer in the age of stars. Anyway. And then this one, let's see, wait. I think I want to, this is one that is, people ask for it often, and maybe you've heard it, maybe you've read it. This is what I used to call my take on evolution. The family is all there is. Think of those old enduring connections found in all flesh. The channeling wires and threads, vacuoles, granules, plasma, and pods, purple veins, ascending bowls and coral sapwood, sugar and light filled, those common ligaments, filaments, fibers, and canals. Seminal to all kin also is the open mouth, in heart urchin and octopus belly, in catfish, moonfish, forest lily, and rugosa rose, in thirsty magpie, wailing cat cub, barker, yodeler, yawning coati. And there's a pervasive clasping common to the clan, the hard nails of lichen and ivy sucker on the church wall, the bean tendril and the taproot, the bolted coupling of crane flies, the hold of the sheer water on its morning squid, quinine to cytosine, adenine to thymine, fingers around fingers, the grip of the voice on presence, the grasp of the self on place. Remember the same hair on pygmy dormouse and yellow-necked caterpillar, covering red baboon, thistle seed, and willow herb. Remember the similar snorts of warthog, walrus, male moose, and sumo wrestler. Remember the familiar whinny and shimmer found in river birches, bay mares, bullfrogs, tadpoles, in children playing at shoulder tag on a summer lawn. The family, weavers, reachers, winders and connivers, pumpers, runners, air and bubble riders, rock sitters, wave gliders, wire wobblers, soothers, flagellators, all brothers, sisters, all there is. Name something else. Okay, let's see. Would you rather hear a poem about a one-celled creature or the horned lizard? Do you have
one-celled creature? We'll go with the one-celled creature.
It's okay. I had so many animals, and people always, they want me to write about animals. And, every once in a while I got tired of writing about him. And I thought, I know where I don't have anymore. And so I thought, wait a minute, I haven't written a poem about a one cell creature. And they are, well, anyway, so this is my poem about one cell creature. And the title is Address the Archaeans, One Cell Creatures. Although most are totally naked and too scant for even the slightest color, and although they have no voice that I've ever heard for cry or song, they are nevertheless more than mirage, more than hallucination, more than falsehood. They have confronted sulfuric, boiling, Black Sea bottoms and stayed, held on under 10 tons of polar ice, established themselves in dense salts and acids, survived eating metal ions. They are more committed than oblivion, more prolific than stars. Far too ancient for scripture, each one bears in its one cell, one text, the first whit of alpha, the first jot of bearing, beneath the riling sun, the first nourishing of self. Too lavish for saints, too trifling for baptism, they have existed throughout, never gaining girth enough to hold a firm hope of salvation. Too meager in heart for compassion, too lean for tears, less in substance than sacrifice. Not one has ever carried a cross anywhere, and not one of their trillions has ever been given a tombstone. I've never noticed a lessening of light in the ceasing of any one of them. They are more mutable than mere breathing and vanishing, more mysterious than resurrection, too minimal for death. I have a funny story to tell about this poem. I don't remember, it was published in a journal, but I think it was that one that was by Ed Hirsch, edited by Jim. Anyway, we were here in Colorado, and the phone rang about 7:15, and I answered it, and this person asked for me, and I said, I said it was me, and I said, this must be someone from New York because he thinks it's 9:15, not 7:15 in the morning. Anyway, he wanted to send me wanted to publish this in this journal, and and I thought he said tricycle. Oh no, I thought he said something that made me think it was the financial business he was in. I don't remember why. Anyway, so he said he was wanting to fax me a contract for it, and because he, wait a minute, I've got this story. Okay, he was actually from Philadelphia. Anyway, he had a rock and roll band, and he wanted to write music to this. And they were going to put this, he and his band were going to put it in a CD with a lot of their compositions. And so he said that he would pay me a portion of whatever they made on this CD. So anyway, he did it. He made a CD, and this was in it with music. And he sent me a copy of the CD, And I listened to it, and they sang it, and they had their instruments. And then at the end, one of the bass singers said "One Love" or something like that at the end. Anyway, that's all I got out of it, was a free CD, but it was all right. Let's see. How are we doing then on time? I have 3 more poems.
That's great, Pattiann. You just go ahead. We've got plenty of time. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and read the justification of the horned lizard. We were in California, and my 2 sons caught one of these lizards. Sometimes they're called horny toads. And so this has a dual underlining the sound of it. Okay, justification of the horned lizard. I don't know why the horned lizard wants to live. It's so ugly. Short, prickly horns and scowling eyes, lipless smile, forced forever by bone, hideous, scaly hollow where its nose should be. I don't know what the horned lizard has to live for. Skittering over the sun-irritated sand, scraping the hot, dusty brambles, it never sees anything but gravel and grit, thorns and stickery insects, the towering creosote bush, the ocotillo and its whip-like branches, the severe edges of the Spanish dagger. Even shade is either barren rock or barb. The horned lizard will never know a lush thing in its life. It will never see the flower of the water-filled lobelia bent over a clear, shallow creek. It will never know moss floating in waves in the current by the bank, or the blue-blown fronds of the water clover. It will never have a smooth, glistening belly of white like the bullfrog, or a dew-heavy trill like the mating toad. It will never slip easily through mud like the skink, or squat in dank humus at the bottom of a decaying forest in daytime. It will never be free of dust. The only drink it will ever know is in the body of a bug. And the horned lizard possesses nothing noble, embarrassing tail, warty hide covered with sharp, dirty scales. No touch to its body, even from its own kind, could ever be delicate or caressing. I don't know why the horned lizard wants to live. Yet threatened, it burrows frantically into the sand with a surprisingly determined fury of forehead, limbs, and ribs. Pursued, it even fights for itself, almost rising up, posturing on its bowed legs, propelling blood out of its eyes in tight, straight streams shot directly at the source of its possible extinction. It fights for itself, almost rising up, as if the performance of that act, the posture, the propulsion of the blood itself, were justification enough and the only reason needed. This one, that one thing that is always amazing me is how creatures want to survive, how hard they use every possible facet that they have to live. And yet we hear a lot of moaning from people who have a lot more than the horned lizard do about their problems. So that was, anyway, part of the reason for writing that poem. And I've had a lot of comments on it from people who live in deserts and know this creature better than I do. All right, two more. And this one also was written with a purpose in mind. This is called Geocentric. It's not very long. And I was giving a reading in my new book called Geocentric. Had just been published at the time. And the woman that introduced me said, Pattiann's going to read from her new book, Egocentric. So that that brought about a lot of apology. So I said, no, it's not egocentric. Okay. Geocentric. Indecent, self-soiled, bilious reek of turnip and toadstool decay, dribbling the black oil of wilted succulents, the brown fester of rotting orchids, in plain view, that stain of stinkhorn down your front, that leaking roil of bracket fungi down your back, you purple-haired, grainy-fuzzed smolder of refuse, fathering fumes and boils and powdery mildews, enduring the constant interruption of sink mire flatulence, contagious with earwax, corn smut, blister rust, backwash and graveyard debris, rich with manure bog and dry rot, harboring not only egg-addled garbage and wrinkled lip of orange peel mold, but also the clotted breath of overripe radish and burnt leek, bearing every dank, malodorous rut and scarp, all sulfur fissures and fetid hillside seepages, old, dependable, engendering forever the stench and stretch and warm seethe of inevitable putrefaction. Nobody loves you as I do. Okay, some strange things came up from that. This year, a woman had an email from a woman, a composer, a musician in London, and she wanted permission to write music to this, and she wanted to, she was writing it for their spring festival in London. And she did it, and they performed it, and they sent me a copy of it. But I couldn't imagine. Everybody loved it for some reason. All right, this is the last one. And this, I don't know, I hope my daughter-in-law is listening, because she picked this poem for their wedding, with, you know, my son's and her wedding. And for a long time, I couldn't understand why. And of course, she's much wiser than I am, because I never thought of it in the way that she did, but I understood. And it was in answer to a question. I just thought, well, what is the grandest gift that we're given? And so I went through a few things, and as I did that, I learned something, and that's what I seek in a poem. I want to discover something or see something in a new and different way that I had never thought of. And that happened in this poem. In fact, the title changed. It's The Greatest Grandeur. And this will be the last poem. Some say it's in the reptilian dance of the purple-tongued sand goanna, for there the magnificent translation of tenacity into bone and grace occurs. Some declare it to be an expansive desert, solid rust orange rock like dusk captured on earth in stone, simply for the perfect contrast it provides to the blue-gray ridge of rain in the distant hills. Some claim the harmonics of shifting electron rings to be most rare, and some the complex motion of 7 sandpipers bisecting the arcs and pitches of come and retreat over the mounting hayfield. Others for grandeur choose the terror of lightning peals on prairies, or the tall collapsing cathedrals of stormy seas, because there they feel dwarfed and appropriately helpless. Others select the serenity of that ceiling cellar of stars they see at night on placid lakes, because there they feel assured and universally magnanimous. But it is the dark emptiness contained in every next moment that seems to me the most singularly glorious gift. That void which one is free to fill with processions of men bearing burning cedar knots, or with parades of blue horses belled and ribboned and stepping sideways, with tumbling white-faced mimes or companies of black-robed choristers, to fill simply with hammered silver teapots or kiln-dried crockery, tangerine and almond custards, polonaises, polkas, whittling sticks, wailing walls. That space large enough to hold invented blasphemies and pieties, 10,000 definitions of God and more, never fully filled, never. That's that. Thank you for the honor of being able to read to you, and I look forward to the video in the future.